We are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into today's recap of Pistons versus the Magic, I want to talk about our episode 16 that is coming out later this week, this Saturday to be exact. We talk about what coming back from the All-Star break might look like, what to expect as fans, what we want to see heading into the off season in these last 23 games. So make sure to tune in for that. So turn on your post notifications and subscribe to be out on the lookout for that. And then make sure to like this video and show love to your Revved Up boys. And then one last thing before we get into today's recap. Pretty much before every game, we post an over-under post about a specific player for the Detroit Pistons. Today, it was Jaden Ivey, and we posted over under 20 points. And I want to give a quick shout out to D.___ Major Music, Faucet Fitness 1996, and Bride Proctor, because they guessed correctly. They said over 20 points, and Jaden Ivey finished with 25. So appreciate you guys for commenting, and make sure to go follow us on Instagram, Revved.up906. Without further ado, let's get into today's recap. Tonight's final score was 106-108 in the Orlando Magic's favor. This game ended on a Paulo Banchero missed layup and a tap in from Wendell Carter Jr. That was kind of it was called a bucket interference at first, and then it was originally called back to end the game. The Magic went on a 15-0 run in the third quarter. Then the Pistons combat that with 11-0 run, eventually regain the lead. Hamidou Diallo with 8 points in the third quarter, big part of that Pistons comeback. The Pistons really excelled when pushing the ball offensively and keeping that fast pace, especially with James Wiseman on the floor. Is that kind of the Pistons finding their niche with that fast-paced offense?
You could say yes, but you could also say no. I think it's just more of a collective that a lot of our guys are freaky fast. And when you give them the opportunity to do their thing, majority of the time what ends up happening is, as you said, we find that little bit of space and all these guys start clicking in that kind of style. And so I think it's just more of like, if we let our guys play, we'll see that. But there are times where you don't necessarily have the quickest guys out there, and then you have Ivy out there, and it's like Ivy's trying to do one thing and everybody else is trying to do another. And so it's kind of like hard to really create something out of that. But I think when you have all the quick lineup in, you're going to see this every single time.
Mm-hmm. And Hamidou Diallo, I mean, I'm trying to figure what was his final stat line. He finished with 12 points, 3 rebounds, 5 of 10 shooting in 20 minutes. I mean, he was just that burst of energy in the third quarter that we kind of needed, because I did kind of notice that the Pistons in the first quarter the first half rather, didn't seem sluggish necessarily, but there were certain plays that I just felt like the Magic were just, I'd give them the edge in the energy department just because they just seemed like they brought it from the get-go. We saw the Pistons in this fast-paced offense that I was referencing finish out with 19 turnovers and through 4 quarters. So I do think that the Pistons pace, I think when they are quick, our offense is a little bit more bolstered, but I think throughout all 4 quarters, you want to try to find that balance. And I think with Jaden Ivey at the 1, we're going to see a little bit of a faster paced offense. And then once Cade Cunningham comes back, he'll kind of add that balance to the offense where, okay, I can match that speed, but then he's going to tone it back when it needs to be toned down. And because I don't believe with the Cade Cunningham team, being led by Cade Cunningham, we finished with 19 turnovers. I just don't really. I see us being a little bit more efficient on the offensive end. Beef stew, His three was falling tonight. We saw him offensively kind of find some consistency. That was really nice to see.
Yeah, he there was a stretch there where he had uh the the tipped pass, he brought it back down, created a bounce pass situation with Duran. Then they come back, has the block, and then they're going back down, hits the three. And that's exactly what you want to see out of Stu. You saw him be a facilitator, a great shot blocker and defender, and then you saw him hit the three when it mattered the most. And he just does that from time to time, and then you're in awe because it's like, where was this early on in the season? Where was this the other night? But he has his moments where he does something special, and you're like, I like Stu. He needs to stay. And that was one of those moments because even if he's not starting and coming off the bench in the future and doing that, I'm happy.
Yeah, we need him to have that offensive presence. We don't necessarily need him to score 25 points or anything crazy. Tonight, he only had 10, but with those 10 points, he made an impact. And that's all we need him to do. We need him to do what Hamidou's been doing and just score when our cold streaks are kind of coming along. We just need him to kind of pick up the pace a little bit. We don't need him to be the main guy scoring. We just need to help pick up some of the offensive load. We don't need anything too crazy. I'm fine with 10 points from Stu if he's going to shoot the way he did tonight. I want him a little bit more around 15, 16 probably, but when his shots came there, they were in very opportune times when we needed them very bad. Ivy started with 10 points in the first quarter, finished with 25. Let me see what the rest of it, two rebounds, nothing too crazy, four assists, but 9 of 13 shooting from the field and 5 of 7 from the 3-point line on 30 minutes. We saw him hit that clutch three out of the in-ball pass with 4 seconds left to tie the game at 105. I'm not sure what happened at All-Star Weekend. I don't know if that's just kind of the confidence boost he needed, but he came back raring to go.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just more of in the sense that he's getting used to his surroundings because he had to adjust. Even for, the adjustment from college to the NBA is much bigger than what people think, and so he was kind of like taken aback by that and like, crap, I gotta do better. And then you saw him slowly get better and better as time went on, and then now when you have a week off to readjust and recalibrate and just focus on getting back out there and wanting to get back out there, you're going to see him play more effectively and more efficiently later on in the stretches of the season. And that's the same thing for a majority of the teams and players in the league. You have that where they just need a refresh and then they go back out there and they're doing their thing. And so this is the perfect time. This is like the time last year with the Pistons where we kind of were like, but first half of the year. Then after All-Star break, we just started kicking it into full gear. And so I think we're starting to see that a little bit. Yeah, we might not get the wins initially, but it's just a good step. And the reason why we lost this game is not because we didn't do enough offensively. We lost this game because of turnovers and fouls. I just want that to be known. If we had 19 turnovers heading into the fourth quarter. Granted, we didn't turn the ball over in the fourth quarter, which is good, but that's still not good for 3 whole quarters. And it's just not good. And then you have 25 fouls. That's higher than our average of 22.5. That's not good either. So like there were these times in the game where you have a meaningless foul getting called, which it doesn't need to be called, but it gets called. I don't want you to be put into that situation where it's probably not a call, but the refs are going to call it either way. And I don't want you to be in that situation because in late stretches of the game, we were just fouling guys willy-nilly. And then you saw Markelle Fultz, you saw Franz Wagner, you saw all these guys get the opportunities at the line that they normally wouldn't have had. and it hurt us in the end. And so and I mentioned this in our next episode there about the turnovers and fouls that need to stop. Now, it's fine when you have at least 10 turnovers. I understand that. Or at least 15 fouls. I understand that. But you can't be over 15 turnovers and over 15 fouls to be successful in the league.
Yeah, especially against an Orlando Magic team that they have their weak spots, but they know how to gain momentum. Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Markel Fultz, Paulo Banchero, they really, Franz Wagner even, really take advantage of mistakes. And we saw them kind of expose the Pistons tonight. And to your point about the fouls, the Pistons are notorious for fouling a lot. So the refs, when they're coming to Detroit or they see them heading to Orlando and they're going to be refing the Detroit Pistons, they know that they're going to be pushing that whistle a lot. So they already have this in the back of their head that, oh, it's going to be one of those nights where I'm going to be busy.
Yep.
And so that getting those ticky-tack fouls, I think, just happens naturally to the Pistons more because they're known for putting up 23 fouls a game. Like, that is abnormal. It's the third worst in the league. And I think the Pistons are just notorious for that. The last three games previous to tonight, Bojan Bogdanovic averaged 31 points, 5 rebounds, 56% from the field, and 92% from the free throw line. Tonight, he had 7 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 of 12 shooting on 1 of 4 from the 3-point line. Watching the game, what did you kind of see from Bojan of why maybe he was kind of out of the mix?
It was a combination of two things. The Magic game plan for him. They were trying to lock him down because they knew that in previous games he was an X factor. So they wanted to make sure they locked him down to get the win. The second part is, again, it's the turnovers because there were times where we're just not making crisp passes, and you can see it clearly. You know it's crisp when you hear the pop off the ball and then they catch it. But it was just more of like the passes were all over the place. Like you saw Bojan. Now this is kind of different to his situation, but it's an example of him coming down and just lobbing it out to the corner to Killian. I mean to
Yeah.
Ivy, and that Ivy, yes, he has hops. He can go up and grab almost anything. But that ball was way too high for Ivy to actually come down and grab. So, and then to also be able to come down and plant down and then hit a shot or dribble around the guy, like you can't do that because you're all the way in the corner. So you're gonna get locked up, and it was just not a smart play by him. But that's the point, though. All of our passes were all over the place tonight. And so you saw like an open opportunity for Bojan at one point in time. It's going to be a couple seconds because their defense was just good tonight. And so Bojan catches it low. What is he supposed to do? He's not going to go up immediately with a shot because you're going to get blocked every time. And then if he tries to put it on the floor, he's getting a double team immediately. And so it's like the Magic just knew how to game plan for him tonight. And that's kind of scary for us in the sense that Bojan consistently drops 15 plus points per game for us. And the fact that he only had 7, that's not good. And it's also a sign that if you take away Bojan, you're going to win pretty much. And I don't want that to be the case because you have Ivy go off for 25. He had a good game. You had Killian had a good game. Alec Burks, Hami, all of them had Livers, even though he only had 9, that's still good. Wiseman with 8, Corey Joseph with 5. Everybody that played tonight scored for us. But the reason why we lost besides the turnovers and the fouls is you take away our key offensive anchor. And so it's just not good when Bojan only produces 7 points.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of our guys too scored in double digits, other than Wiseman and Livers. I mean,
And Duran.
and Durant. I mean, those are
Yeah.
only 3 of like probably the 9 guys that played that didn't get double digits. So I like to see that that wasn't tonight's problem necessarily, but 21. The Magic had 21 points on the Pistons' 21 turnovers. I want to make a stat mistake. earlier, I think I said we had 19 turnovers on the game. We actually had 21. But that's just something that proves the point of the Magic being able to capitalize on mistakes. You just don't like to see that many turnovers. Also, there was 3 8-second violations tonight, which is
Yep.
not really typical. We had 2 from Killian Hayes and then 1 from Marquette Fultz that Killian Hayes forced after his first one. You don't like to see that many 8-second violations, but I guess it just happens.
Yeah. While Orlando was pressing, we were pressing. We were just locking the guys up, and it was kind of hard to do anything off of it. But then the two with us is we were getting fouled during both of them. Yeah, it was great defense, but we were also getting fouled. There was a stretch where we were trying to push the ball up the court. Bojan pretty much gets tackled to the ground, and then we pass that out. Burks spins around the guy, but that's clearly a foul. And then they and then I believe it was Ivy there, or it was Killian, then got fouled, and then they finally called something. And it's like you even have George sitting there going like, there's a foul, there's a foul, there's a foul, and nothing was getting called. And so I'm not saying that the refs were in favor of the Magic all night, because it wasn't the case. It was really back and forth the entire time. But it did seem like when the game was going down to the line and it mattered the most, you saw the refs in favor of the Magic when they probably shouldn't have been. And so I'm not saying they're the reason why we lost the game. We lost the game because we turned the ball over a lot and we fouled a lot. But it's not helping when we're missing these calls that are crucial to the impact of the game.
Greg and George, the Bally Sports announcers, longtime Bally Sports announcers, made a lot of mention about Alec Burks. He finished with 16 points, 4 of 4 from the field, and then 4 of 4 from the 3-point line. So I think he must have, but perfect shooting from Alec Burks. Is there a better vet for this team than Alec Burks? I just love his play and what he adds to the Detroit Pistons. He adds a depth to our offense that we haven't had since maybe a Ben Gordon. I don't even know.
Yeah, he's a big piece. Before he came to Detroit, I was sitting there always saying, "Man, I wish we had Alec Burks," because you saw
Right.
him with the Knicks last year, literally going off for 30 plus games consecutively, and it's like, "Whoa, where is this coming from?" And so when you get a guy, a vet of his caliber, who can just be a playmaker, who can be a shot creator, who can do almost anything night in and night out when given the opportunity to do so by these teams, you're going to see something special. And there are countless other vets in the league that I think could have a very good impact on our Pistons team. It's just more or less, how do we get them to come here? Because I'm not going to want to trade away any of our guys unless it's picks, pretty much. And I don't even want to trade picks. And then how expensive will they be in free agency? Because I don't want to pay the guy at least $5 million to come play for me when it's like I can get the same production out of Isaiah Livers or somebody like that. So there's countless other vets that I think could be impactful on this young team, but I think Alec Burks is the perfect one, and he's going to be here for a while. I'm just going to say it now. If he gets moved, it's more of like we're moving him for something even better than he is, which I'll sign off on that, but he's going to be good for us for the long term.
Yeah, I'm loyal to my guy Alec Burks. I'm a big fan of him. I've debated back and forth buying an Alec Burks jersey just for the if the Pistons re-sign Detroit, the Pistons re-sign Alec Burks, you might be seeing an Alec Burks jersey in a
Okay.
couple of months. But we saw James Wiseman in his second game with the Detroit Pistons, 8 points, 10 rebounds, missed 1 3-pointer, 4 of 10 from the field in 23 minutes. You know, watching the game, I really did like the way he impacted the game, the way he did. What are some of your thoughts about his stat line and his play tonight?
His stat line and his play tonight, I am not complaining about whatsoever. Yeah, a majority of people going like, well, he was a second overall pick. I'm expecting 20 points out of him and 10 plus boards. But He hasn't had the opportunity to really do that in this league so far, and so you can kind of expect an inexperienced young big like himself put up 8 points and 10 boards. But that is actually good for him because he doesn't need to go out there and drop 20 every night, especially when Cade's healthy. He's not going to need to do that because we're going to have multiple scoring options. He's more of our guy that can just do everything for us. And you saw that. You saw his impact tonight. He did everything for us. You saw what happened when we brought him out on the court when Duran went away with the 5 fouls.
Yeah.
He was impactful from the
Yeah.
jump. Every single time he came onto the court tonight, he brought a big source of energy, and then it just affected how the Magic game planned. Because you saw him come out, and then Orlando's like, crap, we need to throw a big in there. So they throw Mo Wagner out there. Mo Wagner struggles. James Wiseman gets subbed out. Wiseman comes back in. Then they bring Bol in because it's like we need size against him. And
Mhm.
so you see that, but that's a good thing for us. Even though you're getting Bol who can do everything for the Magic, and then you have Mo Wagner who is a bucket when he chooses to be one, and a
Right.
good defensive player. So it just shows you Orlando's worried about Wiseman because if they're having to bring in two guys off the bench to replace like Paulo Banchero because they don't think Paulo can guard him, or like Jonathan Isaac, who Jonathan Isaac himself is a great defender, one of the best in the league when healthy. And so when you see a team have to completely change their game plan and throw a big out there just to guard James Wiseman because they're worried about him and his impact, that's very good for us. He doesn't need to have 10 plus points, 10 plus rebounds every night. I'm happy with this. I'm not complaining because you saw his impact.
Yeah, he's a very impactful player right from the get-go. We saw him about, I think, about like 23 or maybe 45 seconds left in the game. We were down by 5. He catches it in the paint, hooks it up for a bucket right away. He was in the ball game literally like 7 seconds, and he's already given us a bucket to push it close there in the end. Any last thoughts or takeaways from today's game before we wrap up today's recap?
We need to cut down on turnovers and fouls. That's that's all I can really say.
Yeah, I mean that really what these games, especially against a team like the Orlando Magic, we know that they're not necessarily better than us roster wise. I think we proved tonight that we can struggle really badly with fouling and turnovers and keep it close up until the end against a team that's fighting for playoff contention. We
If you cut back, I'm sorry, if you cut back like 5 turnovers and 5 fouls, we would have won that game.
absolutely, absolutely, and the fact that we can keep it close the way we did just proves our legitimacy as a team in
Yep.
the East. So that will be today's recap of Pistons versus the Magic. That final score was 106-108 in the Orlando Magic's favor. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on your post notifications, and we will see you guys in the next recap. Peace.